It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and it is our pleasure to welcome to the show 2019 WNBA champion, three-time Coach of the Year, and now General Manager of the Washington Mystics, Mike Thibault. Mike T.
Thank
welcome.
you. Appreciate it. This has been fun.
Great to have you. Great to be here at the arena. And great to talk to you about what it's like to rebuild a team, because we were just talking right before we came into the break about how you, Adam Peters, Will Dawkins, and Michael on the Wizards side of it. Obviously, Michael's got his hands on some level in both the rebuilds. The Nationals, everybody in D.C. is rebuilding. You guys are a little bit ahead of some of the other teams. Everyone's kind of in their own spot. But as you think about what it means to rebuild a roster, rebuild a franchise, all the sports have their unique challenges. You're building a roster of, 12? Adam's trying to build one of 53/70. But what are some of the tenets that you think about in terms of team building, especially when you're on some level starting over? I
think the first thing, obviously, is that no matter what other parameters you want to put on it, you're trying to find greatness in players. Historically in our league, the teams that have won championships have had multi-players who have been top 3 or 4 picks in the draft. Right now we're in the middle of the Vegas situation where they had 3 number 1 picks in a row. They were really a bad team for quite a while when they were in San Antonio, when they first went to Las Vegas, and they got fortunate in the lottery, and so with 3 number 1 picks in a row, that helps you rebuild quickly.
It sure does.
But you have to have those kind of players. We became a championship type team when we were able to go get Elena Deladon, who was a number 2 pick when she was drafted, Christy Tolliver, who was a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft, and have those kind of players, and then mix and match them with maybe a trade here, a free agent there, and then you have to have some success in the later part of the draft. We've been fortunate over the course of our time that normally second-round picks are not, any surefire player even making the league in our league. But we've had 3 in our history with Emma Mieseman and Miyesha Hines-Allen and Natasha Cloud, who were all second-round picks, and you have to hit on some of those along the way to kind of build out your roster to its fullest. And I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is be prepared for when the opportunity comes for free agency to get the right player or the right trade. We had prepared in the year before Elena was going to be a free agent, and we knew that she may want out in Chicago, that we had assets to give. He ended up, because of some injuries, with a high draft pick, but we had some players on our roster who had great value. At that time, Steph Dolson and Kalia Copper, and we had a draft pick. And so when the opportunity was there, we had the ammunition to go get it. If you don't have that, then you're going to stay stuck with the same kind of maybe make the playoffs, maybe not, middle of the pack draft pick, and those things are what kill you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think of some of these other teams going through it right now, and it seems like they're trying to kind of position themselves, and the asset management game.
The Commanders are doing it right now. They ended up with the number 2 pick in the draft, and they may have their quarterback of the future.
Well, and so that that piece in terms of Washington, we're talking about it yesterday where they trade Jahan Dotson, a former first-round pick, and I think about what you just said in terms of, we had to get lucky with a player like Miyesha and a second-round pick who hits, San Francisco, the team that Adam Peters comes from, right. Fred Warner, a third-round pick that has been key to them making a couple Super Bowls. They acquire a third-rounder in that trade. But I'm also curious, Mike, to switch gears a little bit on the human side of things, right? If you have to go to a player like Adam did yesterday and call Jahan or his agent or whoever it is and say, hey, thanks for everything you've done, we're trading. You just actually, I did this with Miyesha.
I did it 48 hours ago.
Yeah. What are those conversations like, especially if, for you and a player in Miyesha that has been such a big part of so much success here?
As I told the media the other day, that's, one of the 2 harder times in the season or the year. One is when you make your final cuts during training camp, and you're cutting people for maybe the first time they've ever been told no in their life. They're not good enough.
That's a great point.
They've all been college All-Americans or whatever. And the second is at the trade deadline, because most of the time you're trading somebody, in the case of Miyesha, who, has been an important part of what we've done. She's been here for 7 years. I'm the one that drafted her and liked her and everything.
Right.
It's not like I'm trading somebody else's pick and not worried about it. That was hard because, you take away the basketball part and you go off the court I love being around Miyesha. Everybody does. She's an upbeat human
Genuinely
being.
one of my favorite interviews from our media day session this year.
No question.
She was great.
But, when you get to a point, you look at, her time right now, she's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of our season. We're looking at, getting younger. It was a chance to get a draft pick and another young player to look at. And that's where, as I told some of our players, that's where the business part of my job just has to take over. I have to take the emotion out of it. You don't want to. You are attached to these players. They've been a part. But I have to do, at the end of the day, my job description is make this team better over the long haul. And so that's how I look at it.
Mike Thibault, GM of the Mystics, with us here live from Entertainment and Sports Arena here on the Hoffman Show. So I'm curious, too, as you make these deals and you think about that long-term planning, obviously this year was a very unique year. Everyone knew the rookie class was going to be amazing. You've got a couple of others and a couple of big names that we already know about, the Paige Beckers, the Kiki Rices, the Juju Watkins, et cetera, that are coming in the next bunch of drafts. And I'm sure you know a lot of names that are farther down that list. How much are you looking at as you acquire picks and try to trade for future picks? Like, how much of an idea do you even have now of how deep those drafts are and thus how you want to move?
Well, I think we have a decent idea. The COVID extra year kind of set that back a little bit, or a redshirt year can do that. Paige Beckers will still have the opportunity, if she wants to stay in school in a year. So, we can talk about those players, but, you have to have different kind of contingency plans. We start basically as a kid enters college, we're already kind of slotting them into the year, what it may look like, how deep that can be. We have opted out of some drafts to have things down the road. So a good example for us would be a couple years ago, we had the number 1 pick in the draft. And we knew that Shakira was the pick we wanted, but we knew we could get her at 3. So that started the whole process. So we traded that pick, traded down to get a chance to get another pick the following year. We took that pick a year ago and traded to Dallas so we could be in the 25 draft with another pick. So we have our own pick this year, and we have Atlanta's pick. That's been like 2.5 years in the making to just look ahead to that. When we did our trades this week, this past offseason, we traded a 3rd-round pick for Jade Melbourne. We went and recouped that pick basically for trading somebody who's never going to be in our league to give Phoenix cap space. They were looking for cap space. We were looking a way to get another pick. So we acquired another 3rd-round pick. In Miyesha's trade, we got a young player and a 2nd-round pick in a draft where in 26, we already have a 2nd-round pick in 25. But we needed one in 26, an extra one, because we think there will be still some players in that draft who can fall to the 2nd round and be valuable. So you're trying to scheme several years down the road as best you can. And, we'll see if even some of the rules change about when people can come in the draft if we have a new collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, man, I love getting this from you because it's so funny to me sometimes because, and like fans are smart, they pay attention. I'm not trying to diss on fans, but sometimes we're playing checkers and fans, and I will include media as well, and there is just so much that goes into it in so many different ways. Is there one thing in particular that you think in, let's call it sports discourse, when it comes to the transaction, the general manager, whatever else is encompassed in your job from a player roster management standpoint that you don't think gets talked about enough?
I think we talked about it just a little bit here about the emotional part of, trading players and all of that. I think sometimes fans, get so attached. I'll say it this way. I'll go back to when I first took the job here 12 years ago. The team was coming off a 6-28 and a 5-29 season, back-to-back. They were at the dead bottom of the league. And on the very first day on the job, I did a season ticket holder event where I answered questions. But one of the questions had to do with, what I thought about the players that were already there. And I said to them, okay, I'm going to give it to you straight now so that when you're all upset in 6 months or 12 months,
when you're ready,
that don't blink, but you could lose a lot of these players over the next 2 years. And I said, I don't know who it's going to be right now. I have not coached this group, but I'm going to spend this first year evaluating this group. I said, we all get people that we like as human beings or we like their personality. I said, but let's go back to 5-29. So you can tell me, and it happened, it literally happened 6 months later. I traded a player, and I had 2 fans come up to me and said, you traded my favorite player. I said, yes, I did. I said, but we also were 5-29, and now this year we made the playoffs, and our goal is to get to a point where we can be a championship team. And so here we are, trading people. I think that the perception is sometimes that, they must throw some stuff against the wall and see what sticks, and then they do it. There is a lot of long-term calculation about what you have to do. Nothing is done in a vacuum. I have a friend in the league who told me that when she first came in the league as an assistant coach, she was shocked by how head coaches and GMs come in the office every day and trade everybody mentally. And in
that way, you're just like fans sitting there on the trade machine on ESPN.com.
But what you do is you say, okay, I have to be prepared for any scenario.
Right.
So if I get a call and somebody asks me about player X, I have to know already what is the value of player X relative to what I can get, where she is now, and what could be down the road. And it sounds heartless. It really does. But that's the job I have to do to be prepared for everything. And so, when we did the trade for Elena Deladon, what was going to be enough? What were you willing to do to get that done? And we had to have that discussion long before we ever got to the trade. And the trade deals as it went along for that specific trade, that the parts of the trade changed 3 days in a row. And Kalia Copper was not in that trade, but it wasn't going to get done unless we did that. Well, you could say, I love Kalia Copper. But at the end of the day, we got an MVP. And so those are things that we have to talk. And I think fans I don't mean this about us, don't necessarily give front offices enough credit for the time spent of going through things. And the other part of it is, and I think back to draft times too, every fan that watches games on TV has players they like, or they saw somebody in a college game that they really like. But they didn't spend 300 hours of watching that player.
Right.
And so if you've watched the player 3 times and you've seen him for 3 games or whatever it is, I can watch a player on film for 2 days in a row and watch 600 possessions that player played.
Right.
And so we're not doing it just based on gut feel. You still have to use your gut about something, but there's real-time scouting of a player that's thorough. And I think that's what every front office in every sport does more than fans understand.
For sure, and you didn't even get into there the relationships you have in the college game with coaches, assistant coaches, AAU coaches, the work ethic, all that kind of stuff. Last thing for Mike Thibault here on the Hoffman Show, of course, general manager of the Washington Mystics. I wanted to ask you about Shakira. I talked to her on Media Day. She was so excited. She felt great. She did threaten to dunk on people. I know how excited she was, and then very quickly she's back injured and missed basically the entire first half of the season. I'm curious for you, though, what did that do to your season and some of those long-term plans as you try to understand what the injury is, how it might affect her in the long term, and also you're evaluating in many ways how the roster is going to be built around her, and then she's not there for that long stretch.
Yeah, that was, a huge blow in the sense for a couple reasons. Number one, we wanted to see, not only for her, but see what this group looked like so that some of the decisions we made, we might not be in a total rebuild if we could evaluate that group as a starting group. I just was told yesterday our starting group from first day of the season has played a total of 29 minutes together for the entire year.
Yeah,
that's a scary step because
it's not ideal, Mike.
No, you can't judge your team and what you have and what you can do. In Shakira's case, she came off a very serious injury. At the time she got hurt a year and a half ago in New York, we were, I think, the second or third best record in the league at the time, and so we were building something. Now we said, okay, she's come back from injury. We know she's going to be a little bit on a minutes limit, but let's take our time, be patient. And she was starting to come back. Game 2, Brittany Sykes gets hurt. And then we go to New York, and she gets hit and knocked down again and gets re-injured.
She's just clearly not allowed to play in New York.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, and so we really don't know, honestly, what our team would have looked like. We don't know. We could have been one of the best 4 or 5 teams, or we could still be where we are now. I don't think so, but now we have to make some educated guesses. The one good educated guess is that she's still going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
We've seen flashes as she's come back. She's on a minutes limit now, but we're going to use this next month to kind of get her feel back for what she wants to be as a player and what we can do to help her over the next off season to become what she wants to be. And then you add that to some of the other young players. We have the 3 youngest players in the league on our roster right now.
Yeah.
And so we've got a month to, some teams would say, oh, it's a wasted month. For us, I think this is going to be a lot of evaluation and growth and teaching and see where we are.
It's Mike Thibault, everybody, general manager of the Mystics. We will quickly wrap up the show because it's almost over. Next.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.